Hello, everybody. This is Drew Duncan with Sync 57, and this is the official Sync 57 Sports Podcast. We keep it low key. We keep it high energy. It can go up and down. You never really know. But regardless, me personally, I believe the opinions are down to earth. Speaking of opinions, David Bakhtiari, the lineman who you've probably seen binge drinking at a couple of Milwaukee Bucks games, went on and said, hey, look, we're throwing the term GOAT around way too much. And I agree. I have been saying this for a long time, as a matter of fact. Not everything is iconic. Not everything is epic. And not everybody is a GOAT. Now, look. I want to nip this in the bud right now. Me personally, I don't think it's a shot at Aaron Rodgers. I really don't believe that at all. In fact, I would say that it's absolutely not a dig at Aaron Rodgers. It's not a rub. Not in the least. But what he is saying is 100% accurate. It's just like Matthew Stafford. Now we're anointing him to the Hall of Fame. We're calling Aaron Donald the greatest defensive player of all time. I guess we're just going to forget about Lawrence Taylor. I guess we're going to forget about Bruce Smith, who still, by the way, is the all-time sack leader. I guess we're going to forget about Reggie White. I guess we're going to forget about Deion Sanders, Charles Woodson. What about Darrelle Revis, the Island? We're just going to forget about Ray Lewis. And just say, no, it's Aaron Donald right now, period. Look, there are a lot of really good and even great players that are in the NFL right now. But how many of them can you look at and legitimately say they're Hall of Famers? And then how many of them, when you go down the list, can say they are the GOAT at their position? Do you think anybody has taken over for Barry Sanders? Maybe Adrian Peterson. But even then, Walter Payton, and I know people like to go, well, you old heads. Listen, man, I'm only 38 years old. I'm not old by any stretch of the imagination. I'm not young anymore, but I'm not old. And I really just think that these terms are too loose. And what makes Matthew Stafford an automatic Hall of Famer anyway? Because he finally got himself a ring. Look, we know the Detroit Lions organization is not up to snuff. The way they treated Calvin Johnson, the way they treated Barry Sanders, the way they treated Matthew Stafford. You know, that trade for Jared Goff was not even equal at all. I mean, it really tells you how little they really thought about Matthew Stafford, the fact that they were willing to make that trade. Because I've been preaching for years that Goff is not that good. Been saying it since the kid was in college. Just not. He's not that guy. Now, to be in the NFL, are you better than a lot of other players? Yeah, absolutely. To win a Super Bowl, does that mean that your team or you are better than a lot of other players? Probably. But is Brad Johnson supposed to be in the Hall of Fame just because the man got himself a ring? Is Trent Dilfer supposed to be in the Hall of Fame just because the man got himself a ring? You're going to anoint Joe Flacco to the Hall of Fame because he's rocking a ring? There's a lot of guys that were riding a pine for all those seasons and only saw playing time when the score was 40-0. And that was it. You know, we everything just gets lost. It gets lost so bad in the translation of everything. And everything is such a numbers game now. And I absolutely hate the fact that sports is strictly a numbers game. Well, what do the stats say? Well, the stats can say a lot of things. Peyton Manning got himself 2 rings, but let's be honest, his role in that last season that he was in Denver, especially in the Super Bowl, the man didn't even throw for 130 yards in that game. What do you have, 3 turnovers, a fumble, and 2 picks? Oh, but it was all Peyton. No, it was that defense, bro. There's a reason why Von Miller was the MVP of that game, and not Peyton Manning. And to be perfectly clear and honest here, that whole defense was the MVP. And Aqib Talib said at one point during the season, the defense is tired of carrying the offense. You know, I've never agreed with the idea of everybody gets a trophy. I can't stand it. Not everybody belongs in the Hall of Fame. What has Matthew Stafford accomplished that you say he is a Hall of Famer? You know, McNabb's not in the Hall of Fame, and technically he's got better numbers than Troy Aikman. The only thing that he's missing is a Super Bowl ring. But when we talk about Hall of Famers, period, you can look at almost any sport, and does it really matter if somebody wins a ring or not? B.J. Armstrong is a Hall of Famer with the Chicago Bulls. Ron Harper. Are those guys Hall of Famers just because they got a couple of rings on their finger? You have to start thinking logically about this stuff. And I think a lot of it has just gotten completely out of control. So I agree. I'm tired of the term GOAT. I'm sick of anointing people after one great season to the Hall of Fame. And it happens in every sport. Football, basketball, MMA, boxing, soccer. One great year, and it's, you know, he's going to be a Hall of Famer someday. Sure, if he keeps playing like that. For years, Tom Brady got it done for literally decades. It bothers me that we just think to ourselves, everybody is an automatic Hall of Famer just because their numbers are extraordinary. The NFL is so pass happy that it's ridiculous. If John Elway's era was as pass happy as it is now, I guarantee you he would have numbers that a lot of people would have thought to be insurmountable. The defenses and the way the schemes are now, it's so difficult to keep up. The rules the way that they are now, it is what it is. And I'm not saying the league is soft. It's come down a little bit. But what I am saying is it favors the offenses. And I think that we're all very well aware of that. And I think that we're all very well aware that in the day and age of Lawrence Taylor, a lot of these guys would not have survived the NFL back then if they played the style of ball that they do now. It wouldn't have happened. Could you have stuck Tom Brady in the 1980s against that New York Giants defense, against that 85 Bears defense, against that Orange Crush defense? Could you have done that? We don't know. And we honestly never will know. We can speculate and presume, and that's fine. That's a part of the debate. That's fun. But to just say that they couldn't or could automatically, in the end, when all is said and done, we'll never really know. What I do know is that LT knocked out Joe Montana for an entire season. That's what I do know. But I also know that same Joe Montana with the Chiefs played with a real big-ass lump on his elbow in the playoffs against the then Houston Oilers. You have to be tough to play in the NFL. Look at Eli Manning. You got to be tough. Look at Joe Burrow in the Super Bowl. Look how tough him and Matt Stafford were. Those guys are tough. There's no question about how tough they are, right? We all criticized Jay Cutler for not being that guy in the NFC Championship game. Just didn't want to tough it out and play ball the way he was supposed to, right? But being tough and being talented do not make you great. There are plenty of talented, tough guys that are not fighting in MMA, that are not in any kind of combat sport. They're not in the NFL. They're not in the NBA. They're not in Major League Baseball. They're not playing in the MLS. They're on nobody's Olympic team for anything. It goes beyond that. Speaking of Super Bowl, in my honest opinion, pretty good game overall. And in the first half, man, they really let those guys play. Second half became a much different story. And there were a lot of botched calls on both sides of the ball. Things that guys were getting away with in the first half suddenly were not getting away with in the second half. And it was the inconsistency in the officiating that made a lot of people upset, and deservedly so. But let's be honest. If you're a Bengals fan and you legitimately believe that your team got cheated out of it, you've got to understand something. That defense for the Rams stepped up when they needed to, and they made a play at the end of that game, and that's all there is to it. Von Miller and AD are just bad dudes. They're just bad dudes. And that offensive line is garbage. And I said going in that as much as I love Burrow and I love what they've been able to do in the playoffs, they did not face a defense that was nearly the caliber of what the Rams were bringing to the table. And they got away from the running game for some odd reason during parts of that game when I really felt like they should have continued to run the football to make things easier so that way you could roll out your quarterback and get him away from those guys in certain situations. But it is what it is. They got there. They played pretty good. You know, don't forget, they were down at halftime, and they came back to take a pretty good lead. But they couldn't get it done when it mattered the most, and you have to give credit to Stafford, and you have to give credit to the Rams because they made the plays when the time came. I'll be honest, going into the fourth quarter, I really was thinking to myself, man, Cincinnati might pull this off. But the Rams did everything that they needed to do in that game. And it's a point-blank situation. And they smothered Burrow. And on top of that, the word is that, you know, he played on a sprained MCL. So the point of the fact of the matter is, when all was said and done, the Rams are champs. They deserve to be champs. And you could talk to me about the officiating all you want if you're a Bengals fan, but you better be ready to point out the calls that they missed for the Rams too. And I'm going to leave it at that. Because it's all fair, isn't it? So that's all I got to say about that. I will add this, though. Kupp played a hell of a game. Don't get me wrong. And Cooper's a hell of a wide receiver. But, man, the way Odell was playing, if he wouldn't have got hurt in that football game, I am telling you right now, that dude probably would have ended up being MVP. He was playing lights out, and it proved everything that I had been saying. You know, when I first got the word that, you know, people were going on national television and saying, well, you know, I really wanted Odell to go somewhere and prove he's still a top 10 or 15 receiver in this league. Bro, first of all, please. Secondly, tried to tell you he's better than that. Thirdly, knew he could do damage. Him and Kupp are an incredible duo, and they've got a quarterback in Stafford who can actually get him the football down the field. He can make throws that Goff cannot make. It's a point-blank situation. And I really believe that it could be the start of something. Again, words we're throwing around. People are like, are the Rams a dynasty? Are they? They've been to a couple Super Bowls now under their coach, McVay, but they lost the first one. So I'm going to need to see another title or two here in the next couple of years before I anoint them as a dynasty. The Patriots were a true dynasty. The Miami Hurricanes at the collegiate level were a true dynasty. So were, you know, the Nebraska Cornhuskers. We're dynasty, really? We're not there, but they could be. If everybody stays healthy, the team stays together, absolutely. But we all know money talks, and a lot of times after teams win Super Bowls, free agency happens and things fall apart. It happened little by little for the Denver Broncos. Kept losing different pieces to that defense, different pieces to that offense. They couldn't find a quarterback. It happens. And Denver's been down for a long time now. The point of what I'm saying is, we'll see what Stafford is made of. When the inevitable happens and they can't keep that team together with Akers, Kupp, Odell, all the defensive players, money talks and every man's got his price. And at some point, free agency is going to happen to that football team. It's just a point of fact. So there's that. By the way, rumor has it that Stone Cold Steve Austin is headed back to wrestling. WrestleMania 38. Now they're talking about Kevin Owens. Yeah, I don't know how I feel about it. I mean, I saw the documentary on him, I should say. And he talked about how he didn't miss it anymore, and he'd been away for so long that, he didn't crave it anymore. Of course, WWE is all, cards subject to change. So whether or not they're using this as a way to get a bunch of viewers, I don't know. But what is Steve really capable of inside the ring? And look, there's nobody out there that I would say is a bigger fan of Steve Austin than myself. People hate it when they come to my house and I make them watch old videos of Stone Cold driving a Zamboni, driving the monster truck. I miss the old pops, is what they call them. That glass shatters and there's just a huge crowd pop, place just it erupts immediately. I love Stone Cold, man, but I don't know that this is enough to make me buy pay-per-view. If Ronda Rousey isn't, and I'm a huge fan of Ronda Rousey, and I think people need to get off of her jock. I mean, seriously, she's living her life. She's making her money. She's doing what she wants to do. She's still a huge star, and she's cashing in on it. It's all there is to it. But I think, though, that with Stone Cold, I think that time has passed. Whether or not he's still the big draw, we'll find out. But whether or not the WWE was trying to keep it under wraps is already kind of a thing. People are going, oh, man, you blew the surprise. But then again, and this is according to what culture? So whatever's going on there, to me, they would want it out to make sure that they get the buy rates that they're looking for. Because as much as I love Ronda Rousey and as big of a star as she is, how big of a draw is she really? Now, first ever main event for all women in WrestleMania happened because of Ronda Rousey, whether people want to admit to that or not. But whether or not Stone Cold is still that guy, I guess we'll find out with the internet going nuts over that right now. I just feel like it's basically, he retired in, was it 2003? Couldn't wrestle anymore, the neck and everything, and even then he said in a documentary, he's like, it wasn't my neck. Everybody thinks it was my neck. It was his spine. That's what was hurt in that match with Owen Hart. So whether or not he's still capable of doing everything, we're going to find out pretty quickly. The match will serve its purpose, I think, and I don't think we should anticipate anything great, but I do love Stone Cold. And I will forever say that he is my favorite wrestler of all time. Favorite of all time. And that's just a point-blank scenario. And he single-handedly saved that organization. He dragged them kicking and screaming back into the main event status. He is the sole reason why they were able to take over WCW. And it's not even debatable. I know a lot of people like to point to The Rock, but let's be honest. Without the Nation of Domination, The Rock doesn't even exist. And without Stone Cold, The Rock doesn't even exist. And The Rock even said that he told him thank you and I love you in the last match that they had at WrestleMania. So don't take it from me. Take it from Dwayne Johnson himself. It's just the way that it is. As far as wrestlers are concerned, there has never been a bigger draw than Stone Cold. And to this day, his merchandise sales are constantly in the tops. And he has sold more merchandise than even Hulk Hogan. Think about that for a minute. Way that it is, my man. You don't have to like it, but you do got to respect it, as they say. So we'll see how that goes. I haven't bought a pay-per-view since the hair match with Donald Trump, where Steve Austin was a referee, and that was the last time. And I don't know that I'd ever buy one again. I watch AEW on occasion. I feel like they try too hard, and they're so sloppy in the ring. They really are. They just get way too much credit. Way too much. And they try too hard to be what it was back then. They named their pay-per-views after all that stuff, Bash at the Beach and all, and I'm good on that. I really am. You will never be able to duplicate what happened back then because it happened organically. It was all natural. It just built itself that way. And it continued to go and push and push. And it was amazing back then, the Monday Night Wars. You just will never see that happen again. Period. Especially with AEW doing stuff on different days. I mean, it's almost like they're competing with, NXT or TNA or something, not the WWE. If I'm being 100% honest. They take a lot of digs at them. And sure, they've, hijacked their amount of superstars from over there. But remember, WCW tried doing that too, and it still failed them. So we'll see. Finally, I want to end with this, the Kyler Murray situation in Arizona. My goodness. That whole thing. By the way, did you see J.J. Watt? He was like, Kyler, I tried to FaceTime Kyler. He didn't answer. What does it mean? Are we still friends? Or maybe he's just eating dinner. Oh, my gosh. Yeah, I don't know what to make of all that, just to be perfectly honest with you. But I don't want to misquote anything here. He has said that he's not happy, apparently. All right. He released a statement saying nonsense is what he's about when he was referring to Chris Mortensen, who, he dropped this report about, it looks like Kyler's already deteriorating the relationship between the quarterback and all that. But Kyler Murray's official statement is, I played the game for the love of it. My teammates, everyone who has helped me get to this position, that believed in me and to win championships. All of this nonsense is what I'm about. Never has been, never will be. Anyone who ever stepped between those lines with me knows how hard I go. Love me or hate me, but I'm going to continue to grow and get better. Kyler really isn't saying anything about being disgruntled. All this stuff is just rumor, hearsay, and circulation. Kyler Murray is a good quarterback, and he's another guy like Joe Burrow who's stuck in a situation with an offensive line that doesn't do much for him. But to speculate on all this stuff because he's, stop following the Cardinals on social media and all that. People sometimes just like their privacy and they like to start over. We all go through different phases. He's still young. Let's not forget that. He's still fairly young. And don't forget that Kyler had options while he was at OU. He could have gone and played professional baseball, a lot like Russell Wilson if he wanted to, before ever deciding to play football in the NFL. So let's not forget that Kyler Murray has had options in his life. And I don't think baseball is still not an option for Kyler. I'm telling you right now, if he broke news today that he's going to enter the MLB draft, there would be teams out there trying to sign him long before. It's the way that it is. He is a gifted player. Yeah, they had a great start to the season and they didn't finish strong. It's a young football team. And there's been a lot of indecisiveness within that organization as well. But sometimes, you got to lose to learn how to win. And that's just the way that it is. Not everybody is Patrick Mahomes coming right out of the gate winning a championship. Not everybody is that guy or that team or that coach. It's just the way that it is. And we expect too much too soon from a lot of people still in this day and age. We really do. Let's not forget, Patrick Mahomes sat a full season behind Alex Smith. He was learning the game of football. And that concept has escaped us for far too long. And I know that we in the media tend to sometimes overhype players up. We talked about that earlier with all the Hall of Fame stuff and the automatic Hall of Famers that they anoint and that we anoint. I get that. But the fact of the matter is that Kyler can play football. And he's not about this drama. Who cares that he's not following the Arizona Cardinals anymore on social media? At any radio station that I ever worked at, I never followed him on social media. I didn't care to. You know why? Because I don't need them following me. I don't want everybody knowing everything that I do. Sure, my Facebook is wide open. My Instagram is wide open. But my Snapchat is just a few close friends and some family members. You know why? Because I like to do things that, if I'm going to get drunk or whatever, I don't want everybody seeing it. I don't want everybody to know what bar I'm at all times. It's not everybody's business. And even then, what Kyler's doing really isn't our business now, is it? It's his life. And we're all way too engulfed in nonsense. And we're all wondering, why is this happening? It's happening because it's happening. And if you were right about your speculation, great, good for you. Would you like a trophy for being correct? Oh, I knew it. Kyler didn't want to be in Arizona anymore and he forced a trade. Good for you. Would you like a cookie now and a nap? You've done your work for the day. You went on, you turned on a microphone and you said, see, I told you so. Even a blind dog can sometimes sniff out a treat, man. Seriously. It's just a blind squirrel can find a nut, dude. Like, stop. So many people are so convinced of themselves. It's ridiculous. But when all is said and done, Kyler's going to do whatever he wants to do. And whatever that situation is, whether he's happy or not, it doesn't really seem to matter. Does it? And what do you care so much for unless you're an Arizona Cardinals fan? Why? So you could trash him? Talk about how he's overrated anyway? Why is it anytime somebody loses, we automatically call him overrated? Every time Tom Brady lost the Super Bowl, see, man, he ain't the GOAT. Who loses to Eli Manning? I don't know, man. But what I do know is that the man went to 10 Super Bowls and he won 7 of them. That's what I damn sure know for sure. Come on. I just, it gets really frustrating. It gets really frustrating that we hate people that are successful. What are you so mad for, bro? Your mama didn't love you enough? Is that what it is? It's what I'm starting to believe, I'll tell you that. Anyway, that's all I got to say about that. My name is Drew Duncan, Sync 57 Sports. This has been the official Sync 57 Sports podcast. Take care of yourselves, everybody.